Hello everyone! I am back with another Valentine card. I have been creating up a storm lately and bound and determined to figure out all of these new and updated video editing programs. So today's card I am using some My Favorite Things Dynamics. This is the coffee cup dynamics set and just running it through my Big Shot. I don't always show my die cutting on video just because it's kind of a pain. But for those that don't know, I have a Big Shot machine and a Vagabond machine. The Vagabond is what I use like 99% of the time, but I can't easily move that back and forth in videos. So usually I just turn to the side, die cut, and then show the finished result. And then when I do think of it like now, I just show using my Big Shot. Both are great machines. Both are fabulous. Love them both. Anyway, so I die cut the coffee cup dynamics and I had run them all through at the same time with the different pieces of cardstock because then it's just less effort. And then I stamped the coffee cup base, it's craft cardstock, and I stamped it with the My Favorite Things fine chevron background and craft dye ink. And then the sentiment is from the Perk Up stamp set, and I inked it up with Hot Fudge hybrid ink and stamped that over top. And then I used one of the heart little die cuts and adhered that over the Trenta size because, you know, I love you the most. And then I'm going to adhere the little top of the coffee cup here. So get that done. And then I'm going to go on to the rest of the card. And I showed in the beginning of the video, and I'll show here again, I'm just following along with one of the My Favorite Things Wednesday sketch challenges. And usually the easiest thing for me to do is I just take a picture of it with my phone. And then that way, since I've got my phone like right beside me all the time anyway, I can just access it to remind myself what the sketch looks like and that sort of thing. So it's got this kind of cut panel. So I just eyeballed it on my paper trimmer while I was looking at the sketch and just used my paper trimmer to trim down the cotton candy cardstock. And then I wanted to add some pattern to that. So I'm using the sweater stitch background stamp and inked it up with cotton candy dye ink. Got that on there. And then I just used scrap paper so I don't get ink all over my hands. And I just reuse the same piece of grid paper. I always link to it in the supplies. It's standard grid paper. You can pick it up anywhere. I've had a multi-pack of this stuff for years and years. Can't even count how many years I've had it. Because yeah, I just keep reusing a piece until it's so full of ink. Can't use it anymore, and then I toss it and grab another one. So did that, and then I needed to trim down some dark brown cardstock for the band of the sketch. And this is also Hot Fudge cardstock from My Favorite Things. And I wanted the sentiment to be stamped on there, so I really wanted it pop, so I was going to emboss the sentiment. So I used my EK Success anti-static powder tool first, just to keep the embossing powder from clinging to everything. And then I inked up another sentiment from the Perk Up set, and sorry, like bits of my messy hair are totally getting on camera. I have it all piled on top of my head, and if I don't pay attention, I end up getting it caught on camera. So anyway, stamp the sentiment with Versamark ink, and then I'm just using some detail white embossing powder and getting the sentiment good and coated with that. Flick off the excess, and then always letting my heat tool heat up just a little bit. Like 30 seconds does the trick, and that just helps prevent the cardstock from warping so much because the tool is already hot before you bring it to the cardstock. And then here is just a Swiffer cloth. I've shown this in several videos. I'm actually still using the same cloth. I haven't grabbed a new one for months now. I'll either cut a piece off when I need it, or I just use this whole cloth, and I just like it to remove that powder residue from the anti-static powder tool. You could use your hands. I've done that before. You know, just rub my fingers on it. Works just as well. But the little Swiffer cloth is handy. And again, I'll link to it in the supplies for those that aren't sure what it is. It's usually my European subscribers and that. This is a kind of a foreign thing for them. So anything will work. You could use, you know, a tissue and like I said, your hands. You don't need a Swiffer cloth, but it was convenient and I like using it. So anywho. To adhere the pink panel to my card base, I decided to pop it up with foam tape since this card is fairly simple and I just wanted to add a little bit extra dimension. And then same thing with this brown cardstock. I decided I wanted to rough up the edges a bit. So I just ran my fingernail along it. There's tools you can use to do this that can really like distress and chop up the edges of the cardstock to give that cool distress look. I just wanted a little bit of that roughed up edge, so I just used my fingernail. But if you want like the really detailed, like cut up, sanded off kind of edge. Yeah, there's a tool by Tonic that you can get, or you could use some sandpaper, or whatever you want. But yeah, fingernail works just as fine too. So roughed out the edges and then adhered that to my card. And then the coffee cup, I decided to pop that up on foam tape as well. So got some foam tape on there, pop that into place. And then as my final little embellishments, I just grabbed some of my Doodlebug sprinkles. So I had some pink, some white, and some brown, and just apply them kind of randomly in the two corners of the card here, just to give it that little extra something to finish it off. And then for the inside of the card, I cut down another piece of cotton candy cardstock and inked up the sweater stitch background again with the cotton candy dye ink and got that stamped. Really simple, just to kind of keep the continuity going. I don't always do any extra stamping on the inside of the card, but I had a plan with this one. So got that stamped first, and then I had a Starbucks gift card, surprise, surprise, sitting here. Any of my friends that know me, pretty much that's like the go-to gift to get for me is just a Starbucks card, because when I am near Starbucks, I love Starbucks. My actual go-to Starbucks is more than an hour's drive here, so I only get to go when I go in the city, but I love Starbucks. I really do. So place that kind of where I wanted it to appear on the inside of the card. And then I'm using one of the dynamics from the gift card grooves dynamic set, which is like a must-have set, because again, if you give gift cards at all, this is such a cool set to have. So put that into place, use just some post-it tape to hold it so it doesn't move at all when I run it through my die cut machine. Because there's nothing worse than you put it into place and then, you know, it shifts and then it cuts crooked and then you have to redo everything. So I always like to use that little post-it tape to hold it in place. And I just save that piece and I'll reuse that again over and over again. That big roll of post-it tape I've had again for months, I think a year now, something. Anyway, so once I was done with that, you can see how it just holds the little gift card in place just perfectly. And then I grabbed another sentiment from the Perk Up set and inked it up with the Hot Fudge hybrid ink. And then I'm going to stamp that above the gift card. And again, my hair's kind of poking out in the way there. Sorry. And then use just that second little heart die cut that I had left over from die cutting at the beginning there. And I'm just going to adhere that kind of right below the sentiment, kind of just slightly under the card. And that's going to finish off the inside. So I'm going to adhere that to the inside of my card. And that's all there was to it. So as always, there will be a link below in the description box below the video. There'll be a link to my blog post that you can go check out that'll have the pictures and the info and all that kind of stuff, as well as links to all the supplies used. So be sure to check that out below. And thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing and the comments and the thumbs up. I appreciate all of it. And I will see you all hopefully very soon in another video. Bye.